Porkins Policy Radio, offering a unique perspective on everything: geopolitics, culture creation, the reality of the world we live in. Coming to you live from New York City, your host, Pierce Redmond.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Porkins Policy Radio. As always, I am your host, Pierce Redmond, and you can find this show here at American Freedom Radio, AmericanFreedomRadio.com, as well as on my website, which is PorkinsPolicyReview.com. Of course, if you are new to the show, there are lots of ways to listen. You can, of course, find everything archived here at American Freedom Radio. Also on my site, you can follow through the RSS feed. I'm on iTunes, TuneIn, Stitcher, Google Play, Podbean, Player FM, a whole bunch of other podcatchers. I'm also on YouTube, although, I feel like people are subscribing less and less or watching less and less on YouTube, which is fine with me. I don't really care much about YouTube anymore, and maybe, I don't know if I'll get rid of it, but I'm thinking about it. And of course, if you want to support my work, then you can always go to patreon.com/Pierce Redmond, and you can become a subscriber for as little as $1 a month, which of course grants you access to the exclusive bonus podcast. I am going to be releasing the bonus podcast either on Wednesday or Thursday. It won't be like, super new material. It's actually sort of a continuation from last week's episode where I was talking about Jeffrey Epstein. So there was some stuff that I didn't get to. I thought I was going to release it earlier and record a fresh bonus podcast, but with the holidays and all of the insurance nightmare that I was dealing with, I just didn't have the time. But it's still a fun little episode. I'm going to add a couple of things as well. So definitely look out for that. Also, just want to remind people, if they haven't seen already, did a great show with Aaron Franz from Transresistor Radio, with my co-host Spike Robinson over for from the Open Minds Foundation, and my co-host for Undue Influence in Pop Culture, which you should check out as well. We did an hour with Aaron live on Transresistor Radio, and another hour Spike and I did with for Uncle the Podcast, also live. Really, really fun show. Great 2 hours. So, check that out if you haven't seen it. Definitely subscribe to Transresistor Radio or Uncle the Podcast. And also, definitely check out the Open Minds Foundation. And very briefly, because I am excited about our first hour and our first two guests, I just wanted to give a big, big shout out and thank you to Hector, who this is the first time this has ever happened to me. And I was pretty I said on Twitter it was like an early Christmas present. I was buying a Christmas tree last night, and this guy and his very lovely fiancée Stephanie came up to me, Hector and Stephanie, and he asked if he said, "Oh, you're Pierce Redmond, right?" And I said, "Yeah." And I thought maybe like I knew him from work or something. And he's like, "Oh, I recognized you." And I said, "From the show?" And he said yes, and it was like one of the coolest things ever. And we talked for a little bit. It really made my day. It had sort of been like a long day at work, and that was like a really cool early Christmas present. So thank you, Hector and Stephanie, for recognizing me and chatting a little bit while we both got our Christmas trees. Very, very cool. But we are doing an end of the year special, I guess. I'm not going to have an episode out next Tuesday for Christmas, and I'm probably gonna skip the following Tuesday, which is New Year's Day. So this is sort of our end of the year wrap up, and joining me for this end of the year show here in the first hour are a good friend of the show and frequent guest Robbie Martin of Media Roots Radio, of course, a very heavy agenda.com, and at long last we are also joined by Abby Martin, of course, the host of the Empire Files and Media Roots Radio with Robbie. And I'm so excited and thrilled to have both of you on, especially you, Abby, because this has been like, this has been like 2 months in the making. But Robbie, Abby, how are you? It's good to have you on.
Hey, Pierce. Thanks for having us on. This is only the second time we've been together on a podcast.
Is that really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And Abby maybe, I think, stepped away, so she might be gone, and hopefully she will return momentarily. But I guess in spirit, at least right now, very cool to have you both on. Well, I wanted to. I think Abby is. No, Abby, I cannot hear you. So I think we're having a little trouble with Abby's microphone. Danny, we might need you to reconnect Abby. I'm not sure. But we will try and work through that. Of course, there's always these little technical difficulties with live radio. I'm gonna just call Abby right back. But Robbie, why don't you kind of start us off, and I guess just give us your initial thoughts on 2018. What do you make of it? I know that that's a tough question, but it's an end of the year special. So how was your 2018?
Well, some parts of it were great. Some parts of it were bizarre. Some parts of it were depressing. But I guess just starting from the top, the end of the year, I guess one of the best things that happened this year was the death of George H.W. Magog David Copperfield Bush.
Yes.
So I was very pleased that monster died. And I think that, humanity got a little breathing room, a little break, after that war criminal is gone. So that's the best recent news that I can think of. But geez, Pierce, we've talked about so many different things just this year alone. I think it was actually 2017 when we were talking about Cernovich and Jeffrey Epstein.
Yes.
And Alan Dershowitz, that bizarre connection, the whole Pizzagate explosion and then how that evolved into the bizarre QAnon conspiracy that ended up pushing Iranian regime change. I don't know, we didn't even talk about this, Pierce, but Mike Pence was just photographed with a QAnon patch wearing sheriff.
Yeah, I know.
But then, then the whole other side of it is like on the neoliberal resistance side, you have, like these completely delusional conspiracies as well about Putin being in control of everything, this omniscient figure that has not just elected Trump, but is sowing discord and causing, all these right-wing movements all across the world that, the French election, Brexit, everything under the sun is a Russian Machiavellian plot. And then at the same time that's happening, you have Trump being investigated by Mueller about Russian collusion, but it ends up being about these campaign finance violations, which, not what the original investigation was set out to do. However, as someone who thinks Trump is a dangerous, evangelical, neocon-baited psychopath, I would be extremely pleased if he went down for doing something so stupid as paying off two women to avoid embarrassment with his wife and family.
Yes, absolutely. And that would be, that would be amazing. Of course, it'd be great to get him on something even more, but there would almost be sort of like a fitting, tribute to him. So I'm trying to see if we can get if we can get Abby on. We're having still some technical difficulties. But we'll try and figure that out.
Did you try telephone? Maybe instead of Skype, I don't know. Might be better.
So you guys cannot hear me?
Oh, hey, I can hear you now.
Oh my God, great.
Oh, wow, okay, well,
wow.
There we go.
What happened? Great.
Hey.
Hey.
Well, I guess, Abby, I'll throw it to you. First, just wanted to say, just so excited to have you on. Thank God Skype wanted to, suddenly work all of a sudden. I guess I'll throw it to you though, Abby. How was your 2018? What did you make of it? Cause I'll just say quickly for me, I just found it super exhausting. Just this nonstop barrage of bullshit mixed with tragedy. So what did you make of it, Abby?
Good description, Pierce. Look, we're wading through these mass hallucinations and it's getting worse. People are just, dovetailing out of control, man. It's either the Trump worship, the brown shirt shit going on, the Proud Boys, and then you have the Russia stuff. Just honing in on, deflecting from what the reality really is that brought us Trump. So it's been getting worse in that respect. I thought that it would get better because people would, be able to accept where we are more, but it seems like the hallucinations have been getting stronger. On top of that, I mean, just geopolitics just seem to be really, really bad. I mean, just Israel-Palestine alone, the Great March of Return, just the fact that that's been going on since March, this ongoing massacre, where now over 220 people have been gunned down by snipers, people are dying every day, and it just becomes so normalized. And that's, I think, the most disturbing part to me is how this has just been accepted as normal. We don't even talk about this anymore, and people are dying every day still there, Pierce. So it's a lot. It's a lot.
Oh, yeah, yes, no, agreed. That was like when I was sort of thinking of like like end of the year special, what are like the most important stories? For me it was the like geopolitics, foreign affairs, and sort of like the lack of coverage, and also like the lack of just like any desire to know about, like the war in Yemen for me was like the biggest thing this year. Just, cause you're talking about, you just mentioned 200 and, plus Palestinians died, just from March. And then, you just go a little south to, Yemen, and we're talking about like millions of people being starved and bombed and whatnot. And it's not even like a blip. Like, I know you, both of you talked about this is like months back, like, 60 Minutes covered it, in this very sort of like whitewashed, 60 Minutes segment. And then that was like kind of it. There was like that moment of like, oh, maybe people will start to sort of care, and the mainstream media, like they sort of did with the Khashoggi thing, where it was like, oh.
I was just going to say that, yeah.
Yeah, it's like, oh, look, and, we're giving them arms and Yemen, but it wasn't really, it wasn't really made into anything. And I'll throw this to both of you. The lack of focus when it comes to this, because obviously, like, Trump could care less about anything, outside of like, I guess his like phone, really, and like tweeting, like nothing else really matters to him. But you look at like stuff in Yemen, but also Afghanistan, which is just, if anyone's been noticing, it's like deteriorating faster and faster. The Afghan armed forces are like a joke. There's like insider attack, there's like green on blue attacks are happening now, like at such a level that like nobody, the Americans and the Afghan forces don't trust one another. There was just another, province, Farah province fell just a few days ago to the Taliban. Then like also like Nicaragua, Iran, Pakistan, there's like a whole list. There's all these like horrible things. Trump doesn't care, and instead has just sort of like left it to this cabal of neocon lunatics to sort of run everything. And for me, that's been like the biggest story, is that we have zero idea what any of these people are doing. Like there's no real sense, like what the fuck does John Bolton do all day? Like what's his agenda? I'm not sure that's even really been like articulated. And to me, that's like the biggest story and sort of the scariest thing. And like, I think that will be the kind of like, the biggest thing for me in 2018 is just that we've like completely lost sight of all of these foreign engagements, and like who knows what's going to happen. And I don't know, I'm just going to throw it to both of you. You can kind of pick that apart however you want.
Go ahead, Robbie.
What you want me to comment on just the horrific nature of all these ignored foreign policy conflicts, Pierce?
Well, and also just like the way that to me it's like Trump has just sort of allowed for this small group of people around him to have complete and utter control over it. And we like to, 2018 for me in terms of foreign politics and geopolitics, foreign affairs, is basically just that we have no idea what's going on. What's the plan with Iran? What is John Bolton actually, does anyone know, like, any of these, you've spoken about this before, Robbie. Like, all of the, the various neocon personalities in, say, like, the Bush administration. Like, we used to know who the, like, Assistant Secretary of Defense was. We knew all of these, like, strange little, neocon celebrities. Like, I truly don't know, for the life of me, some of these people that are making huge decisions. And I don't know, what are your thoughts on that alone?
I think that partly can be explained by the fact that the mainstream media apparatus that usually sort of is attached at the hip to the administration's policies, is not currently what we're seeing. We're seeing like the mainstream media railing against this administration. So it creates sort of this illusion or this more confusing thing where we don't know necessarily, like in terms of the pathway, let's just talk about like where are these foreign policies goals heading? It seems like the mainstream media and the Trump administration, you know, are contradicting each other all the time. I mean, we've even seen the mainstream media trying to attack Trump from the right on North Korea, which was a very interesting thing to watch. But then at the same time, you know, some of that confusion comes into play where it's like John Bolton is now, you know, the NSC for Trump, and he was one of the most hawkish people against North Korea during the Bush administration and before and even afterwards. So in terms of like the people and what foreign policy goals are happening right now, I think it's almost more useful to look at things like what's happening right now in Yemen and what Trump did to sort of increase the conflict there. Or what, you know, you could look at the specific Iran team policy that was written up in the State Department by former Bush official Brian Hook. He is actually working under Mike Pompeo now in the State Department. And you could look at all the demands essentially that they listed to Iran, and if they don't comply with these demands, then the harshest sanctions ever put on the country will be implemented. But yet the demands they're putting on them are completely unrealistic by design. They're almost cartoonish. So I mean, you can sort of map the trajectory of where these things could go. But I think, I mean, focusing in on Yemen but in terms of just the players, you're right that it is more confusing. I mean, I think John Bolton is definitely the most dangerous, you know, person in the administration as far as someone that we know. But people like Mike Pompeo, Sebastian Gorka, Nikki Haley, even Mattis, I mean, all these other people that surround Trump and are apparently were loyal to him, Nikki Haley's out now, they had very neoconservative-esque foreign policy goals, even though they might not fit the traditional mold of like a Bill Kristol or Robert Kagan. So, I mean, I think part of what you're describing is also the wild card nature of the Trump administration. It's like it's part of this year has been almost just kind of a waiting for the other shoe to drop type of feeling. And I feel like with the Bush administration, there was that sense that, yeah, we're waiting for another shoe to drop. These neocons are going to try to get us into another war, but at least we could map it out better. And like more specifically, we had more context. We had more of a roadmap to tell us what they might do. This is a little bit more of just wild card. It could be random, and I think it creates more of an uneasy feeling in general.
It's so like terrifying to think, but I keep wondering like what's going to be that moment? What's the next conflict? Are we like, you know, we actually going to invade Iran or something? You know, I mean, it seems far fetched, but at the same time, God only knows, like what either Trump could be convinced to do or what it doesn't affect him. You know, like he's sort of, acquiesced power to all these people around him. And I mean, like the past couple of days alone, it really has just been like, I mean, he's just like the most unpleasant old fart with nothing else to do other than tweet obsessively about the whole like Mueller investigation, the witch hunt, and he wants to like sue SNL. I mean, I don't know if that's like just like the end of the year and like nobody is gonna like say anything to him, but he also kind of just seems to be like unraveling. I don't know if you guys did you see this like comedian who said that, you know, he was like addicted to Adderall and was like snorting it on set during The Apprentice?
Yeah.
Like I don't, you know, like it does make you wonder. Like if he's just like that fucking high all the time, tweeting constantly.
Oh, Adderall was fun.
Yeah, exactly, right, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's hard to believe that he would be like that on point, because I know it does like eat away at your, the frontal lobe of your brain, like at a certain point. So it is hard to believe that he would just be like that old, being able to like do Adderall lines to the dome. Who knows? I mean, I think that, you know, we saw that 60 Minutes thing and that was a big moment, but at the same time, we're so used to corporate media ignoring, obviously being subsidized by the very industries that are perpetuating these wars. Yeah, of course we shouldn't depend on them to show this shit, and it was a big moment, of course, when they did, but that's pretty much all it was a moment. in time, so then they can say, yeah, we covered the Yemen war, we showed these photos, and then we moved on. As you just mentioned, 3 times the amount of people that died in the Holocaust are actually at risk of starving to death in Yemen right now. So this is happening, but then we look to Latin America, and I think that this is a really big portion of what's going on because we're all being distracted. I mean, rightfully so, frankly, because Trump's tweets are insane. Like it's not like bad to look at his tweets and be like, holy shit, there's a madman running the country and tweeting constantly and like grandpappy, like watching and injecting into his veins. But at the same time, you're right. There is a cabal, kind of out in the open. You have generals, defense contractors, you have neocons, and you have these evangelicals who are pushing through a lot of things, while we're all distracted by Russia and what's going on like on the domestic front. My big thing, obviously, because Empire Files was shut down, like subsequently because of these sanctions, I mean, the rhetoric aside, all of the wars aside, and we can get into how Trump's like escalating literally military conflicts and special operations and troop levels and deaths and drone strikes in literally every facet of the entire planet. But just sanctions alone, it's like stunning the amount of sanctions he's implemented on every single quote unquote adversarial country. And look at Latin America. Nicaragua, the NICA Act is just being pushed through Congress that Trump's obviously going to sign, debilitating sanctions there. Venezuela. I mean, even though Obama implemented sanctions, it was only like 7 sanctions on Venezuela that he put forward in 2015. And Trump just came in there, ramped it up to such an insane degree that our show had to get shut down. And this went kind of under the radar because this was happening amidst all of like the online tech purges and censorship and these algorithm changes. And so no one ever really connected it. Like this might be also perpetuated by like the anti-imperialist, like people at the top who are not anti-imperialist people at the top, but the anti-imperialist bent in the alternative media spectrum is a target. And our show could have absolutely been targeted from these people, but we'll never know because it was just a happenstance of the larger sanctions at hand. But it is amazing that our show, Tariq Ali, and all of these things are happening at the same time. And then you look at something like RT, which I've been going to bat for since I left because they've been able to provide that platform for left, right, and kind of the two extremes that are outside of center. But I mean, I just saw my good friend Show, who was a producer at Breaking the Set, her show in question just got purged from the network, and it looks like it's actually becoming like a full-blown Trump network, pro-Trump network. So it's really disturbing, Pierce, that even places like RT, because of this kind of censorship, the FAR registration, and just like the Russia-phobia, McCarthyist mode that we're in, like they've even fallen prey and now purged communists from the network. So we're in a disturbing place. We're now begging for donations. Our show's shut down. Telesaur's hanging in the balance, and all of this under the Trump administration.
Yeah, the Telesaur thing. Obviously, you have this like personal connection to it, Abby. But I was like shocked that people were not more like, I don't know, just sort of like on point with that. Right. Because I think there's so much going on. There's such a malaise in society that suddenly I like didn't realize initially. I was just like, oh, I guess Abby's like not doing shows or something. I didn't see like the new YouTube videos. And then it was like, oh, wait a minute. But that's the same thing. I mean, Venezuela analysis they were getting bumped on and off, with like Facebook and other thing. The same with Haiti analysis. And there's some really disturbing stuff going on in Haiti right now as well. But all of those things, and it is disturbing to see RT slowly kind of just become. I mean, I can't even really watch it anymore.
It's awful. It's awful.
Yeah.
One more quick thing about John Bolton, because you were talking about him. I mean, he went out there, and when he initiated these new, and we're talking about Cuba too, like reversing all the normalization that Obama did. I mean, it really is extreme. And he's going out there making this speech saying the troika of tyranny, basically reckoning back to the Bush axis of evil. Reinstating hegemony in like these 3 countries that the U.S. needs to now reassert its dominance. And that's really fucking scary because we know what they did to the Middle East. So now they're setting their sights on Latin America and saying, okay, now you guys are next. And we already know that they were participants in trying to assassinate Maduro on live television with C4 explosives. I mean, can you fucking imagine if that was successful? And Trump was meeting with opposition leaders in the White House just weeks before that. So all of this is part and parcel with obviously expanding the U.S. empire under Trump. And still, Pierce, we still hear that he's the anti-interventionist standing up to the deep state. I mean, it's baffling.
No, it is amazing that his ability to like escape scrutiny when it comes to. I mean, I think I was with you too, thinking like it has to get better. Like I couldn't be that pessimistic about life, and maybe I think maybe before we end the hour, I mean we'll try and talk about some positives, but it was like, when are people gonna wake up? Especially that kind of, it's like the Troika of tyranny and, I mean, it's just like, what the fuck is he even talking about? And really like, Nicaragua is posing a massive threat,
But I just wanted to quickly throw in there too, like the writing was on the wall for what's the Trump administration was going to do in South America when they originally floated the idea of Elliott Abrams becoming Secretary of State.
Yeah.
I mean, he was like he was primarily responsible for a lot of that horror that took place in South America during the Reagan administration. So just as an aside.
Oh yeah, and just the idea of Elliott Abrams coming back, I mean, that would have just been mind blowing. Quickly, I just wanted to say, because good friend of the show, John Gold, was trying to call in, but we're having some issues with the phones, but he just wanted to send his love and respect to both of you, and he was excited that you were both coming on the show.
Thanks, John.
This sort of like focus on Latin America is disturbing. The complete lack of focus when it comes. The thing that scares me with Trump is that, remember, like right when he came into office, if we can remember that far back, there was that raid, I believe, in Yemen, where like a whole bunch of like special forces were killed, and there was this, they said that they had gotten information, and then it turned out they didn't really get any intelligence, and it was this, this huge fiasco. And Trump was sort of like, that was his, like, I guess his first sort of like foray into all of that. And then he sort of, did his best to sort of, spin it and whatnot. And then ever since that moment, he just has been totally like removed from any of this. It's like, if you like in some of those, like when he's like walking to Marine One or something, and the reporters are asking him, if they ask him a question on some sort of foreign entanglement or whatnot, he's like, I really don't know much about that, or I can't really speak about that person. And he's just like, it's like sort of like clocked out when it comes to
he said the same thing about Assange. Yeah, he's just like, you know what, I actually have no idea who that is. I actually have no idea who Julian Assange is.
Well, it's like David Duke.
Okay. Yeah, and you mentioned Yemen. I think it's important, back to Trump increasing drone strikes over 400%. I mean, you're talking about that raid that took out, special operations, like American soldier. There was like a big fucking botched raid, like a ton of people died, I think like 40. And then just 2 months later, the U.S. carried out like a bunch of indiscriminate shelling, bombing 30 sites in I think like over 36 hours. And this is we're comparing this to 32 drone strikes carried out the year before. So he bombed 30 times in 36 hours just a couple months after that horribly botched raid. So that's just to give you an insight on like, what it means to take the gloves off, quote unquote, the rules of engagement here.
Yeah, and again, this whole he's fighting the deep state, he's a anti-imperialist, anti-interventionist, and I feel like that one of the silver linings with like all of that is that the real kind of like the full-blown like cult members like Bill Mitchell, it doesn't really matter. I mean, like Trump could come out and shoot Bill Mitchell's mother in the head on live television, and he would still defend him, like on his live stream. But, those people are sort of like gone. But I think even like the Cernoviches and the real toadies like Posobiec, I think they know that he's a joke. But they're just sort of like, they're just going to kind of go with the flow. And I think eventually they will slowly kind of like fade away and shift down. You're already sort of seeing that with Cernovich. But that's like the one silver lining is I think that a lot of these people just sort of, they know that he is everything they claimed he wasn't going to be. And at least like, even if they sort of, rhetorically are supportive of him, I think we can at least have we can sleep well at night knowing that, they were conned as well, or that they just know that,
But they are cons. They are cons themselves. So like they've attached themselves to Trump, and I think that the problem with thinking that they have some sort of like moral compass guiding them, and they're going to be like, you know what, we're actually off the Trump train because Trump is bad now. Fuck no, dude. If Trump wins again, these people, that's like the scary thing to me is these people continue to be popular and potentially be stronger because I have a really fucking bad feeling that Trump's going to win again. Because look at what the Democrats are doing. I mean,
did you see this fucking Tulsi Gabbard is thinking of running? Like that's going to be the alternative.
And Elizabeth Warren, it's like her race is dead in the water, dude. Like it's over.
Oh, Elizabeth, yeah. I mean, I am just done with the Elizabeth Warren. I don't ever want to have to think about her again. I don't want to hear about her, Native American ancestry or anything like that.
Hey, can I just say something about Tulsi Gabbard really quick? Cause,
please.
I mean, I get accused of shitting on, people who are supposedly anti-war allies. Like people get mad at me for criticizing Tucker Carlson, which is mind-blowing to me that he's considered like an anti-war hero now. But I gave Gabbard a chance, like I like some of the things she said. I selectively read things she said. Even when she met with Bannon when Trump was getting into office, I thought, well, maybe this is her warning the administration not to do neocon thing. Like, I just gave her all these free passes, and then I started reading more about her, and man, she's said some really terrible things. She's a supporter of the extremist Modi regime in India. She believes in the war on terror. She says she's an anti-interventionist, but she's a hawk on terrorists, whatever that means. I mean, that's straight up W language. So just now that I'm over with that rant, I just want to throw that out there because I think a lot of people ignore, a lot of the things that she said. She's not really actually anti-war.
No, not at all. She's also, I don't know if you've ever looked into this, Robbie, but she's part of a very destructive Hare Krishna cult in Hawaii. And the guru, who I won't even, honor him by, talking his Indian name. He's a white guy called Chris Butler, who's a real psychopath. And is, you can find old, tapes of him online, berating his members. And it's like there's a whole community of people that have escaped this cult. And this is like Tulsi Gabbard has spoke at, benefits that they've done. Her father is a prominent member within this particular, Hare Krishna sect. And, that there's a whole story behind that, what she, and how much influence they have over her agenda, because she's also, I don't know if it's still the case, but at one point she had her press secretary was a high-ranking member within, Chris Butler's group. And, there were rumors floating around, in like the counter cult world that, that they had a lot more influence over her and that this was like part of a larger plan that this guy, Chris, Butler had always envisioned to sort of bring the group, and again, I mean, that's like why Scientologists have latched on to people like, Callista, Gingrich. Who's hung out with, the Dugans, big Scientology bigwigs. It's just that you always want that one person in Washington. But that was the thing that actually kind of freaked me out about Tulsi Gabbard and the weird connections between the Hare Krishna sect that she's in and her support of Modi in India, who's just basically like the Indian equivalent of a Nazi. It's so weird that that's the best we can do. As a, so-called like anti-imperialist or anti-war, candidate is Tulsi Gabbard.
Yeah. Really makes you miss the days of Kucinich. Sorry, Abby, go ahead.
Oh, yeah, totally. Time, I feel like why do we praise Ron Paul but then we're criticizing her? I mean, aren't they kind of the same, in the same vein? I don't know.
Yeah, I think Ron Paul's a joke too now. I mean,
that sucks. Everyone's just so bad. I mean, the one good thing that we can glean out of the Congress, and which is very little, I guess. The Progressive Caucus is kind of a joke. They've already capitulated to Nancy Pelosi, but I guess just symbolically that the fact that we have 2 sitting Congress people supporting BDS is a good thing. But I have not looked into Tulsi Gabbard's record on foreign policy enough, or the whole Modi stuff. But, I do like what she has to say sometimes, but yeah, it is, I think it just says a lot about where we're at, that is like considered.
Exactly. No, I think that's totally it. It's like, just like you've said before, Abby, like the fact that Tucker Carlson is blown up in sort of this world of anti-imperialism is it is like scraping the bottom of the barrel. It shows how desperate of a situation, how dire the situation is, that he's the quote unquote the best anti-war guy on TV. Like that's just illustrates how bad the situation is overall.
I still don't actually understand how Tucker Carlson is considered. It's just because like for like 2 years he went around saying he was a libertarian, while he was like appearing on like The Blaze and with what's his fuck? I can't even remember his name.
Glenn Beck.
Glenn Beck, yeah. What happened to Glenn Beck, right?
Glenn Beck's still on The Blaze. They tried to absorb Gavin McInnes's CRTV stuff. In fact, I think they did, and then like they did a purge of Gavin McInnes. But I think that's just like a front. I don't really know what's going on behind the scenes, but yeah, that's what happened. So they folded into The Blaze.
But does CRTV not exist? I heard you talking about this on the last episode. I cannot really like listen or watch anything on CRTV.
Right, yeah, I should have done my due diligence and like followed up on that, but it's difficult for me to also watch the content. It's like watching NRA TV. Like I feel like I have to get like paid.
You run like super baked or something.
Or like on opioids. Yeah, like someone needs to like fuck me up.
Oh, well, I just Googled it, and CNBC, Glenn Beck's The Blaze and Mark Levin's CRTV merged to form right-wing outlet Blaze Media.
Oh, great.
Well, so Mark Levin runs that network. That's news to me. That's crazy. One of the things that's happened over this last year that just wanted to touch on really quickly is that, like, we've been talking about this for a while, Pierce, but this idea that the right-wing media used to be separated into, like, several distinct layers. Like, you had the Fox News layer, the Wall Street Journal, the Weekly Standard, pumping the propaganda sort of from the top. And then you had the AM radio right-wing radio circuit, like Michael Savage, Laura Ingraham, Mark Levin. And then you had the InfoWars conspiracy right-wing stuff, like the birther stuff. But as we saw over the years, that birther stuff started to sort of merge with the AM right-wing talk radio. But now, over the past 2 years, they're almost indistinguishable from one another. It's like those three worlds have merged into this very strange thing where you hear people on Fox News now, like Sean Hannity, talking about how we need to fight the deep state. Yeah. It is one of the most incredible things ever. And then you even have Sean Hannity dog whistling to QAnon. So it is very surreal. And then you also have Trump encouraging fascist violence in interviews, talking about like an armed insurrection, like to fight Antifa. So we're in this very bizarre state. But then just back to what you were saying at the very beginning, I do think part of the reason why Trump is able to sustain his base, even though he's doing so many egregious things like foreign policy-wise, the things that people in his base claim that they hate, like the things in Saudi Arabia is doing or Yemen, etc., is because Trump is a symbol to rail against the left, what all these right-wingers and all his base see as the left establishment. And to people like Sargon of Akkad or Sticks and Hammer 666, to them, they really don't care that much about Trump's foreign policy. Ultimately, they care more about things like the liberals trying to censor them. The liberal establishment, free speech. We need Nazis to be able to, say the N-word on Twitter. I don't even know. That seems to be what that's their fight. It's not even really about Trump. And I think that's why people like Posobiec and Cernovich can just sort of, once Trump starts being bad, they can just sort of either ignore it or move on to other stuff and rebrand themselves. So,
Robbie, I really love what you said about the mainstreaming of this conspiracy culture and how it's like just a mashup of all of right-wing media is now mainstream. And we've like leapt over that part where we can really analyze the deep state and these notions that are just traditional notions of like critiques of power structures.
Or even false flags.
Actually from the left. Like
absolutely.
From the left. And we've leapt over that and now just embraced this bizarre notion of like the right wing is now, hijacked the deep state conspiracy culture. And then again, to paint the left as this cartoonish notion of what exists on mainstream media. Like liberal culture and like pop culture is somehow left.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi is a left.
Yeah, Nancy Pelosi is a left.
Yeah, it's like, and it means absolutely fucking nothing.
And they basically, they've hijacked this whole Silicon Valley, corporate censorship issue as a partisan issue. They did it super fast. I mean, we saw originally, we're like, oh my God, all these Silicon Valley companies were going to start censoring leftists and alternative media, and then whoosh, like within a week, they just took that and ran with it and turned it into like conservatives are being censored. So now that's what it's become. And it's like, well, no, actually there is a real danger of corporate censorship. But to think that the people who sit on these boards of the corporations are like leftists who care about, civil liberties or PC culture, they don't care about that. They care about money. So
just like Chomsky talks about, he's like, okay, even if you have like a Maoist or a Stalinist on Washington Post editorial like board, they're like, you won't be, it doesn't matter who fucking works at these organizations. Like, yeah, maybe let's say liberals in DC work at some of these outlets. They can't write those views. Like, it doesn't matter because the owners of the network are conservative billionaires who have a very specific agenda to toe the establishment line. It's just like that. It's just so weird that people like Tim Pool and stuff like can't actually understand where we're at. And like they think neoliberalism is actually like communism. And I just find that really strange that here we are like 100 years after, the New Deal and shit. And like Bernie Sanders is considered revolutionary. We aren't even talking about imperialism. The U.S. empire is bigger than ever. We have $1 trillion goddamn defense budget, and like we don't even understand what the hell our country's doing, and we're still toying with these notions as if we've heard them for the first time.
No, it's like I saw this stuff when I forget what it was, some big company that like pulled ads from Tucker Carlson for whatever. He said I think it was the thing about immigrants or making America dirtier, and it's like it's like some it's like a leftist. It's like what are you talking about? What world do you think you're living in? They're not, it's a huge company that's just, all they see is just, well, we're losing more money. Like they don't really give a shit about immigrants. If the tides turned and it was socially acceptable to bash immigrants, these companies would have no problem saying with Tucker Carlson.
100% correct.
It's just like the optics of it for the moment. They think, okay, we'll make more money by not associating with him. But it doesn't make them like a good company or a, quote unquote leftist company. No, the conversation has sort of devolved to this level where, I don't even, these labels mean nothing. There really is, and the biggest joke, you've made this point many times on your show, is that, basically it is still the same kind of capitalist elitist system that we're arguing about. Nothing has changed.
Well, hilarious. They think that tech companies are like liberal. That's how the conversation is. And you're like, well, dude, the biggest donor of like, Trump was like celebrated with Brett Kavanaugh at his confirmation hearing, and he works for Google. It's like none of this actually holds water when you look at, what the companies are really doing. It's not liberal versus conservative. It's like just corporatocracy, like late stage capitalism shit.
Totally. The guy who came up with the Oculus Rift was at a military conference, like defense contractor conference recently, and he was saying, most people in Silicon Valley, like in private, they want to help the military. They want to help us win against our enemies. But people in Silicon Valley are like afraid to acknowledge this, like in public, because they want to be sort of perceived as being like liberal Bay Area people. So it's like that's the furthest it goes is they just want to be perceived that way, as being like compassionate. Facebook, what was it, 5 years ago, put something like 20 different gender identities as like you could choose out of 20 different selections. And it was like, at the time, I was like, wow, that's very forward thinking. But in retrospect, it's like, no, they were just ahead of the curve in terms of they saw the culture changing, and they're like, how do we make money? How do we do this to like make trans people or genderqueer people feel like they're part of our community? And they become a product and a commodity, just like we all do, on these social media networks.
Well, yeah. How can we sell them whatever? How can we like sell their data? The Silicon Valley thing is bizarre to me too, because like the whole Silicon Valley wouldn't exist without the government and without the military. And like I remember people like kind of go off about that. And just like Tor, I cannot remember his name, but one of the main project leaders on Tor, he would, if he was selling Tor to some spy agency overseas, he sold it that way. But if he was selling it to anarchist hacktivists, then he sold it that way. But ultimately doesn't matter to him. He's still collecting a huge check, and they're still getting paid by the Pentagon. Even to this day. So, the notion that Silicon Valley is like, I think people are really sort of like confusing, like, I don't know, like, I think that culture has become more, quote, like liberal. It's become more, it's like okay, or slightly more okay to be, different or unique, or to embrace whatever gender fluidity and things like that. But that doesn't mean that
Yeah, the corporations are liberal. I mean, they just reflect the progress, the arc of progress. I mean, of course, over time, people are going to become more liberal. Progressiveness is going to take root, gay marriage, the gender fluidity. So, of course, corporations need to reflect that and absorb that and, like, institutionalize that in order to, like, get, to sell products and to reflect it back at us where we're at. It doesn't reflect that they're fucking liberal or progressive at all. Like you said, I mean, it's just because that's where the money is. But it's crazy that they've been able to just pick apart the most radical aspects and language of all social and mass movements and then use that for branding. And then somehow that means that there's corporations that are left and there's corporations that are right. Like, it's just such a babyish and false notion, frankly.
Oh, yeah. And of course, obviously, it's like, the real psychopaths are still winning.
Right, exactly.
In fact, they have to work even less. I mean, we're doing the work for them, by kind of acquiescing to all of that. We're coming up towards the end of the hour here, and I guess, if we can try to, end on a slightly more positive note. Any kind of silver lining that, you see with any of this, Abby, or any, I have like one little thing that to me would just like brought a smile to my face, but I'll throw it to you first. Anything positive we can kind of extrapolate from 2018?
I mean, I guess the only thing that I can say is the lotus flower grows out of the mud. So I guess all the negativity and insanity that's been going on has actually galvanized and generated a shit ton of activism and movements on the ground, mass movements, social movements. It is very disturbing, but again, it's like, the whole shutting down of Empire Files has now invigorated me even more. I'm more empowered now to do my work and to create an independent and established funding structure that I don't rely on anything. So I think that people are like realizing where we're at more and taking the steps that they need to become okay with that situation and kind of prepare for what's coming. And if we're looking at just Palestine alone, I really do feel like there is hope finally for apartheid to fall. And, the more Trump rips the mask off of what's going on and reveals that the U.S. is not a responsible player in the peace process or a neutral player at that, I think that people are going to I think that we can really see apartheid fall soon. So that's really optimistic for me. I mean, it's hard to find the good out of this year because it's been so bad, but that's where I see it.
Robbie, any positive stuff you want to impart on the listeners?
Geez. I think Abby Abby kind of took the most positive thing that I was thinking of. But geez, it's hard, man, to think of anything positive. I mean, I think it's positive if Trump goes down for, these campaign finance violations or, any other, blatantly illegal things that him and anyone in his family did. I've, at first when the Mueller investigation started, I was really on board with what Trump said about it in terms of it being a witch hunt. But I wouldn't put anything past him at this point in terms of criminal activity, in terms of doing incredibly stupid things, just leading, during the campaign and after. So, yeah, I want to see him go, and that doesn't mean I want to see Mike Pence become president. I want to see this entire administration go down. They are horrific, evangelical, military-industrial complex promoting Zionist, crazy people. Like, I would be very happy to see them go down, but that hasn't happened yet. So I guess in terms of a positive thing that's happened this year, I really couldn't tell you. There's been more awareness, I guess, of some of the horrible things that America has done. Like, a small thing like Wormwood, the Errol Morris documentary on Netflix. Now millions more people know that the CIA assassinates their own for revealing secrets. So that's like one tiny positive step, somewhere.
This one might, I know you'll like this, Robbie. I think you might like it too, Abby. But, David Seaman of Pizzagate fame has had to, Fulcrum News has folded because, nobody wanted to give him money anymore. And he blamed it all on the, quote, Q-tards and the boomers, within QAnon. So that to me was amazing, and that was like wonderful news.
Wait, dude, that's hilarious, because he was getting a shitload of hits. Like, I thought.
Well, he was a full QAnon guy too.
Yeah, wait, so he's throwing QAnon under the bus? Wait, please, this is great. Please tell me 100%.
more. 100%. I'll send you guys this video of him ranting for about 20 minutes. And he talks about how, he's like, and all the donations and all the stuff I did, all I got was $10. That's all you could give me? $10? Don't even give it to me. And he's had to fold everything. His lawsuits against Google have failed. He basically said because he couldn't be on YouTube, he has to, fold this media company. So again, they all hate these, they're censoring conservatives, but they all want money from Google and YouTube. They have no problem taking money. But that to me,
Google is fucking hilarious, man.
Yeah, 2 separate federal lawsuits, which are probably costing him God only knows how much. But yeah, I guess, fuck David Seaman. I hope he, has to get a real fucking job now instead of, running around saying that John Podesta rapes children outside of the White House. So, that to me was the silver lining. That was like, another early Christmas present, seeing David Seaman pout about having to get a real job.
Yeah, that's the good thing is, like Robbie was just saying, Trump does have this cult of personality, and even though his whole administration is terrible, and even though he's an outgrowth of something that's deeply wrong and sick and twisted with our society, he does still represent something that can be very dangerous, and that's why, the rhetoric has consequences, and we're seeing like a lot of people on the ground that are acting on behalf of him. And so I just hope that he can be taken out. And then, hopefully all of these grifters and charlatans will just be dead in the water. And that really is my hope for the next year.
Yeah. And I think
2020 or whatever.
I think some of the Epstein stuff is gonna, have a larger impact going forward. And that would, I think Dershowitz, could see, something could happen to him, which would be fucking amazing. And, if Acosta's already starting to fade, and if, Alexander Acosta goes down, if Dershowitz goes down, that's a huge win. And a big, that's a feather in our cap. Very quickly though, Abby, I did want to, throw to you just to plug, the, Empire Files, where people can go to see new episodes. You have an excellent, interview with Randy Credica, which everyone should check out.
Yeah, check it out. We have 2 episodes up, one about the mass shooting epidemic and how it's kind of, the roots are tied to white nationalism, and the origin of this country. Going back to how Trump's just a reflection of the worst characteristics of it. And yeah, just check out the EmpireFiles.tv, Media Roots Radio. Thank you, Pierce. Fuck.
Yes.
Yeah, Media Roots Radio.
Thank you, Abby and Robbie Martin, for joining us here in the first hour. I'm going to continue my end of the year special with J.G. Michael of Parallax Views in the second hour, so please stay tuned.
Welcome to the world's meeting place. American.
Practically narcotic.
Freedom.
Oh, yes. I like very much.
Radio.
You're an American institution.
American Freedom Radio.
Have you experienced the miracle of CBDs? They can help you reduce suffering, reduce stress, help you sleep better, modulate inflammation in the body, and is absolutely safe. Meta Hemp Solutions offers a radically innovative approach to CBDs for exceptional results. Stop suffering and reduce your stress now. Isn't it time for a good night's sleep? Stop worrying about tomorrow today. Lab tested for potency, purity, and is non-psychoactive. Free shipping to all 50 states. Try our product risk-free. Money-back guarantee. Use code AFR15 to get 15% off. That's Alpha Foxtrot Romeo 15 to get 15% off. Offer ends soon, so visit MetaHemp Solutions today at metahempsolutions.com or call 833-858-7500. Suffer no more. Get rid of the stress and sleep better. Get our product now at metahempsolutions.com. That's metahempsolutions.com.
We all know that they're not telling us the truth. So stand up for your rights, demand the real medicine, and your right to use it and grow it. This is Rick Sensen, and you're listening to American Freedom Radio.
Are the trials of modern-day living getting to you? Feeling tired all the time with no energy? Is proper nutrition a challenge? Having trouble sleeping? All of these evils, sleeplessness, tiredness, poor nutrition, and stress, wreak havoc on our bodies and minds. Enerfood, our incredible organic superfood, has been here to save your life day by day for over 14 years. With the densest nutrition on the planet, Enerfood is filled with 20 superfoods and super herbs designed to cure the evils of modern life. Enerfood will turn you into a superhero, and your family and friends will notice. Don't you want that get-up-and-go feeling you need to seize the day? Why wait? Try it today and start feeling great again. Order now at www.enerfood.com and use the code TR15 for 15% off. Or call 866-762-9238 to place your order by phone. Use code TR15 for 15% off Enerfood at www.enerfood.com.
Yo, what's up? Check this out.
The voice of the revolution. American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
When the weapons of mass destruction turned out not to be true, I expected the American people to rise up. They didn't. Then, when the Abu Ghraib torture thing surfaced, and it was revealed that our government participated in rendition, a practice where we kidnap people and turn them over to regimes who specialize in torture, I was sure then the American people would be heard from. We stood mute. Then came the news that we jailed thousands of so-called terrorist suspects, locked them up without the right to a trial or even the right to confront their accusers. Certainly, we would never stand for that. We did. And now it's been discovered the executive branch has been conducting massive illegal domestic surveillance on its own citizens, you and me. And I at least consoled myself that finally, the American people will have had enough. Evidently, we haven't. In fact, if the people of this country have spoken the messages, we're okay with it all.
You're listening to AmericanFreedomRadio.com, the network who perseveres in delivering intelligent debate, constructive dialogue with true independence. The freedom to broadcast the truth is not free at all. So what is American Freedom Radio worth to you? The empowering information with fun, honest and pure integrity behind it provides an example to follow. Friendships to flourish with the moral altruism that pulls no punches. The hosts sacrifice and show remarkable discipline in their duty to deliver quality radio in service to the community with strength, wisdom and loyalty. The founders of AFR wish to thank you personally for sharing your views and insights to make the best radio and alternative media. Now it's time for you to give something back and play a vital role in the future of America. Be as generous with us as we've been with you. Click on the donate banner at AmericanFreedomRadio.com or volunteer by emailing AmericanFreedomRadio@ymail.com. Vaccine, psychotropic drugs and artillery batteries not included.
Launch sequence initiated.
We're now in the approach phase. Everything looking good. Control is good. 5, roger, copy. 3, 2, 1, engage.
mind to experience. American Freedom Radio. Porkins Policy Radio, offering a unique perspective on everything. Geopolitics, culture creation, the reality of the world we live in. Coming to you live from New York City, your host, Pierce Redmond.
Okay, everybody, welcome back to Porkins Policy Radio. I am your host, Pierce Redmond. If you are joining us here in the second hour, we are joined once again by J.G. Michael, the host of Parallax Views, a show I highly recommend everyone check out. And J.G. is joining us for the continuation of our end of the year special for 2018. J.G., how are you?
I'm doing pretty good. I enjoyed that conversation with Abby and Robbie. I actually wanted to comment on it real quick, if you don't mind.
Yeah, please do. I'm glad you listened. Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say, Abby and Robbie, they get crap from, the liberal Democrats for having worked at RT. At least Abby worked at RT. And, I see people on the left attack Abby and Robbie for having been associated with 9/11 Truth and stuff like that. But, even though I don't always agree with them, they've always been very principled. And, these days I can't say that for a lot of activists, especially on the left. I mean, I'm seeing people on the left say that we should move right wing on immigration and support, Richard Ojeda and his presidential run. And this is a guy who supported Trump as a Democrat during Trump's run. And, you just have people on the left that are willing to sell out on issues like immigration if it means getting something like single-payer health care, whereas people like Abby and Robbie, they've been on point with all these issues. They've been pointing out the issues with ICE and all of that stuff. So I'm glad to have heard from them, and I think more people should listen to them.
Oh, yeah.
Media Roots Radio.
Yeah, Media Roots Radio is, that's like a must listen. I listen to everything they do. I didn't even, I forgot to kind of, plug it, but they did a really cool, true crime, episode. I think they're going to do another one about the, anthrax, the 2001 anthrax attacks, which, definitely recommend. But yeah, I know, they get criticized by virtually everybody. Everyone's got an opinion. And, of course you said, you mentioned like the liberals go after them for 9/11 and Russia or RT. And then the conspiracy people go after them for, Robbie's a secret Mossad agent, all of this sort of, whatever. And, or they're not covering certain things and, controlled opposition, all this sort of nonsense. But, I think, like you said, they're actually principled people. They don't just sort of like sway in the wind and change and, become something else because it's financially beneficial. And I've also, I've just sort of like, come to just like not give a shit about like all of the haters out there. So because like I have Robbie on at least like once a month, so I don't really care anymore. But JG, I wanted to as I said, continue our end of the year special. I'll throw it to you just because this is how we started off. But how has your 2018 been? I assume not like super terrific, but What are your thoughts on it?
It's been a very busy and wild year for me personally. And the thing is, just keeping up with all the media and the news is impossible in this age of 24-hour media. I think that's the big news story in a lot of ways, is the fact that we can't even keep up anymore, and everyone's in their little bubbles now of what media they end up getting.
Mm. Oh yeah, definitely. I even am kind of guilty. I think everyone is guilty of that. It's like the, 10 sites that I always check, and I do my best to kind of reintroduce them. But yeah, like you said, there's only so much time in a day. And you can't really digest every single piece of information. And in an age where, a tweet from a twit like Trump is breaking news, I mean, then you'll never be satisfied. I agree with you too. 2018 personally for me has been, not rough, but, it's been trying at times. I think I think it's kind of universal. I think everyone's kind of had it's rough when the world is so shitty out there and the news is so depressing. It can tend to leak into your personal life as well. But I did kind of want to like get into, we were sort of touching on it somewhat in the first hour, but the kind of like cultural side of things and the sort of like culture war that's taking place. And we were mentioning there in the first hour that this weird sort of like transformation that much of the right-wing media has undergone, where it's sort of become like this giant leviathan. There is no difference anymore between Sean Hannity and Alex Jones and the Wall Street Journal and what have you. They're all sort of like on the same page. When people like Jason Chaffetz is writing a book about the deep state, then it's lost all meaning, and we've entered like a new reality. But I guess, JJ, I'll throw it to you to, we'll kind of pick it apart, but how do you see the sort of like cultural side of things? Because, on the one hand, it does seem as if, and this is something we've talked about on this show and on your show, the rise of the kind of like right wing has definitely, I think, changed even from like the last couple of times we talked about it. But how do you see all of this sort of coalescing, towards here, the end of 2018, both on the right and on the left? Because I think that while the left doesn't get nearly the sort of a media attention that the right does, I think there's definitely been some stuff going on there, culturally speaking. So what do you make of 2018 in terms of that?
Well, I mean, with regards to, the sort of right-wing noise machine, I'm not sure it's changed nearly as much as people think. I think there's always been a conspiratorial element to the right-wing media machine going back all the way to the John Birchers. And I particularly think of in the 90s with stuff like the rise of World Net Daily, or as I like to call it, World Nut Daily. That's where Jerome Corsi came out of. Big guy who pushed the birther stuff and is now, I guess he's being indicted by Mueller. But, World Net Daily were the people that gave us these sort of Ann Coulter type pundits that would eventually graduate to Fox News. They were sort of the nexus between conspiracy right-wing culture and the mainstream right. They would basically produce the media pundits that became the big names in right-wing media while also supporting the stuff like birtherism. So I think in a lot of ways it's just an accelerated form of that, what we see in the right-wing ecosystem. I mean, even Matt Drudge. Matt Drudge was always pushing conspiracy theory stuff, even going back to the Oklahoma City bombing and all the Clinton conspiracies. So I think it's always been there.
Yeah, no, I tend to agree as well. Here's something, you and I were sort of chatting about this the other day. But there's also, I guess, with the passing of the world's oldest cocaine dealer, George H.W. Bush, there was this like weird kind of like nostalgia, I guess, going on, and this like strange reverence, and that to me is also kind of like a factor in the sort of like culture wars or the shifting culture. Is like the way that this guy was being deified, and then you had this article by how do you pronounce it? Ross
Douthat. Why we missed wasps in the New York Times. It was horrifying.
Yeah, let's just talk about that for a minute, because that to me that's what's so strange too, is that you've got this like the right wing populism, people sort of embracing Trump for being like an idiot, he's one of us, he just loves Diet Coke and McDonald's and so what if he can't spell? He's just, he's the everyman, even though he's far from it. He's a fucking twit, but, he's also rich. But you have that on one side, and then on the other side you have this like we have to return to. First off, Donald Trump is a WASP as far as I know, right? I mean, what makes him not a WASP? I don't know. I mean, yes, he's not like a George Bush WASP perhaps, but he certainly is a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. His father absolutely was, but what do you make of that, JG? This is sort of like, again, it's like, I think because there's also something sort of like weird and like, make America great again in the Ross Douthat's essay. It's like, let's return back to the George W. Bush era. Like, as if it was fucking great then. How little, time has to pass for us to be like, oh, well, yeah, it was wonderful under Bush. And what do you make of that?
Well, I think, coming from a very like progressive and left-wing perspective, I view the establishment's sort of media and punditry as, they're liberal, but to me liberal means that they're very conservative in a lot of ways. We also see this in Hillary Clinton, calling for immigration restrictions in, Europe to fend off the far-right threat. The liberal establishment in this country is willing to kowtow to the far right, or what's now called the alt-right. And we see it even in their eulogies of people like John McCain, who was a horrible warmonger, and also George H.W. Bush, who, if there was any justice in the world, would have ended up in a cold cell with Ronald Reagan, given everything that they did in South and Central America. It's ridiculous. And I don't know why they have this need to constantly side with the right wing in this country. They always feel a need to placate them. They never want to push for anything that will, get the Republicans angry.
Yeah, I know, exactly. No, it's like, or if they do sort of like offer up some praise to, someone, I don't even want to say left wing or but the sort of establishment liberals, or whatever. There's always like, well, they were a controversial figure, whereas like George H.W. Bush apparently was the greatest humanitarian that ever lived. I think they all just kind of suck up to the Republicans because they know that that's really where like the true power seems to lie, or at least it does now. And I don't know, for some reason, the Bushes are this sort of like political royalty. Look at like Michelle Obama and W. They're like bosom buddies. It's mind blowing. But there's something about it that's like weird too, where it's like, cause it's like, God forbid, what happens when Trump fucking kicks the bucket? If they're doing this for George H.W. Bush, they're gonna embalm Trump like Lenin. It's just like, that's how far the bar has, fallen. No, jump in.
I was gonna say, with W. Bush, he's been rehabilitated now by the liberal establishment, and, people are like, oh, look at W, he paints pictures of dead Iraqi children, and he dances and looks like an idiot, when he's with the Obamas. It's utterly ridiculous. And like you said, what happens 20 years when Trump's gone and he passes away and we have like cyborg Death Emperor, Peter Thiel as the God Emperor of the world? They're going to be like, oh, if only we had a guy like Trump in office. He was so much more genteel. Mm-hmm. Like, dear God, help us.
Yeah, I know, exactly, right. It's just, I don't even want to fathom what that's going to be like. And I think there's also, there's just something, there's also just this weird, fetishizing of, our presidents and stuff. It's funny too, like, you've got like, on the one hand, you've got George H.W. Bush dying, right? And he's a fucking saint. W is just sort of the avuncular, funny cousin, that everybody loves. And then you've also got, Hollywood chiming in, and with this Dick Cheney biopic, which is so obvious, it's so obviously going to not necessarily humanize him, but it's going to make him look cool in some way. You know what I mean? It's not going to be a negative portrayal. It's obviously going to like gloss over all of the really kind of serious stuff and the more, conspiratorial things related to Dick Cheney. But there's something just like, it's like that's who we're lionizing now, or we're making biopics about. And it goes for all the others. I mean, I'm sure, Steve Carell as Donald Rumsfeld is not going to be the actual evil Donald Rumsfeld, that's shaking hands with Saddam one day and then trying to kill him the next. And that is even more sickening to me. And of course, to come from Hollywood, which is supposed to be so, we're part of the resistance. We hate, it wasn't that long ago that, Sean Penn, all the Hollywood liberals were going after Bush, and now they're making, biopics, about it.
And people like Sean Penn complain about things like, Me Too now. And, Sarah Silverman, I still remember, Sarah Silverman at the, 2016 DNC, she was telling all the, Bernie supporters to just shut up, and know their place. I mean, these people are not progressive, and they don't really care about, people. They're just sort of interested in their own sort of cultural capital and the image they've created for themselves.
Yeah, no, and like we were saying in the first hour, like Hollywood is like all of these big corporations. I mean, they don't really give a shit beyond how much money am I going to make? How is this going to benefit me in the long run? And this is the thing that's sick too, is like, obviously Christian Bale wants his Academy Award. So he's playing Dick Cheney. Like that's it. I'm sure that's how Adam McKay and the, the other producers sold that to him. And that's how they sold it. And it's got Oscar written all over it. There's like, I was talking about this with my girlfriend the other day, and I don't think the analogy is like quite appropriate, but, have you ever seen the movie, Downfall?
Yeah, that's the one, that's sort of been, memed into famousness with the famous, Hitler thing. Yeah.
Yes, right. And, I was saying like, I said like, Downfall did not necessarily humanize Adolf Hitler. I mean, it didn't. But Bruno Ganz was a great actor. He passed away, I think, shortly after making the movie. I believe. I'm not sure. But, he is such a good actor that, not that it humanizes Hitler, but it shows him as a person. He's not this like cartoonish figure. Like you see that he is, he was a real person who, did normal things. He did weird things, whatever. But that's like, that is so, we're so kind of past Hitler, I think, that you can kind of do that. Like Dick Cheney, it wasn't that long ago that he was in power. We're talking about millions of dead Iraqis and Afghans. The torture program. I mean, this is not that old. And to be making a movie, which again is basic, there's also something weird too where you have, Sacha Baron Cohen doing the thing with Dick Cheney, now this movie. I don't know, there's something about it that again, it's like, if we're being nostalgic for Dick Cheney, I mean, God help us all.
It reminds me of? It reminds me of, in 2012 when that, movie The Iron Lady came out where, Meryl Streep played, Margaret Thatcher. And everyone was talking about how Margaret Thatcher is a feminist icon.
Yeah.
Just thinking to myself, Margaret Thatcher is just the British version of Ronald Reagan. Right. I mean, the amount of people that suffered, under Margaret Thatcher's sort of neoliberal policies is ridiculous. And they were venerating her in Hollywood with that movie.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and that's what she did in Northern Ireland. All throughout her reign. No, of course. I mean, and it shouldn't surprise us that Hollywood would, adore these lunatics. But there's just, I don't know, there's something like in the air, that is just sort of rubbing me the wrong way. And this whole kind of like, rebrand, like we need the, neoconservative cabal, that started with H.W. Bush. We need to bring that back. A, as if that's not already what's going on with Donald Trump, and B, as if that's any better. And there's also, what's funny too is it's, those are the same people that were like, oh, Hillary Clinton is too elitist, and she ran against a right-wing populist. So, but their response is, we need a right-wing elitist. It's like, that's your response to getting rid of Donald Trump. I mean, I don't know, it just doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, I mean, the other thing that people have to keep in mind, and what blows my mind about this rehabilitation of W. Bush and Dick Cheney, is if these people are truly angry about the rise of right-wing populism and things like the alt-right, we have the neocons to blame for that in a lot of ways. Because the Iraq War was such a bold-faced lie and a failure that it pushed people to the right on a lot of issues. They started questioning the government just as an institution as a whole. And, it completely just changed the landscape politically. And it allowed for a lot of paranoia. You talk about the rise of Alex Jones and the right-wing conspiracy culture. I mean, that's in large part due to the Iraq War.
Yeah. Oh, totally. Absolutely. I know. And I think that there's also, some of that is sort of by design. Speaking of, some of the rise of the right wing, it's just like a topic that you and I have, discussed a lot, and I like talking about it with you and picking it apart. But that I think is also one thing with, 2018 is the sort of like, rise and fall of some of these figures, and I'm sure they'll rise again, but one in particular, which we've, talked about many times, and we briefly touched on him in the first hour, is of course our good friend Gavin McInnes, because he strikes me as this sort of interesting character study in all of this, because I think that's maybe like one of the casualties for the alt-right is he's just fucking, I think he's kind of done, at least for the foreseeable future. And I just wanted to get your thoughts, JG, on, Gavin McInnes on, InfoWars recently with the cowboy hat, watching, in terror as Alex Jones, had, one of his sort of, classic nervous breakdowns. What did you make of that?
I think it's, sad and pathetic, but then again, I've always found Gavin McInnes to be a really sad and pathetic figure. There's a, New York comedian by the name of, Sam Cedar. He hosts his own show called The Majority Report, and he has talked about how Gavin is this guy that, he can't get on stage unless he's drunk. He's a very timid, sort of scared person. He needs that liquid confidence, and that's according to Sam Cedar, as I said, who's a great sort of progressive pundit. But McInnes to me is just a guy who is this sad, angry little man who's mad because, the hipsters didn't like me as much as I wanted them to. That's what it comes down to for me, and just to see his downfall has been a joy for me to watch. It was an early Christmas present.
Yes, yeah, exactly. And I think that's sort of what I was trying to allude to in the first hour. But I didn't really get it outright. And, and Abby was saying I think Cernovich and Posobiec are more dangerous because they'll keep, kind of adapting. And if Trump wins, of course, they'll all be vindicated. But I think McInnes is sort of a template for that, where it's just he kind of he reached the end of his rope. I mean, the Proud Boys seem to sort of be dissolving, or what's scary is that they'll probably dissolve into real, some more serious, brown shirt gangs, and they'll kind of stop the pretenses of being, like a fucking social club. But, it seems like, McInnes is just sort of saw the writing on the walls. He didn't want to go to jail, he didn't want the FBI looking into him. He didn't want to have to move out. It was the same thing, Alan Dershowitz, bitching about, I can't go to Martha's Vineyard anymore because everyone hates me. And, Gavin McInnes saying everyone hates me at the country club. It's that's again, this is the punk hipster, but he can't join the country club, because everyone thinks he's an asshole and a racist. And I think he kind of saw that, and tried to get out when he could. It doesn't seem like he's going on Alex Jones with the cowboy hat is you've really kind of hit rock. But it's what's his, Milo, when he was on InfoWars, hawking fucking.
He's in the news again, by the way, Milo. He's $4 million in debt.
Yeah, right? Yeah. Which is, that's another little early Christmas present. But that's what it seems like. InfoWars is just sort of that's the last, for a lot of people, that's the last stop, before they have to end up, getting a real job. Because you kind of...
Didn't that happen with Cernovich, too? Our buddy Cernovich?
Yeah, I was going to say the same thing. He used to go on InfoWars a bunch, and, there's some classic videos where Alex is obviously not, super thrilled with whatever Cernovich is babbling on about.
Yeah, they fired him because he sucked so bad at presenting.
Yeah, right. Yeah, which is true. No, exactly. And I think Cernovich he is such a fucking chameleon, and he will reinvent himself again and again and again, as he already has, But you even see that. I mean, I don't, I don't know what Cernovich's next step is, but I don't know that it's, periscoping about whatever the 4D chess that Trump is doing. And I was going to say too, it's sort of like Roger Stone, used to be everybody wanted to have Roger Stone on one of the 3-letter news outlets. Now it's who's going to have Roger Stone on is Alex Jones. That's it. So again, kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel. That it's sort of that last vestige, before you kind of just have to say goodnight and get a real job. Or actually, work, actually do something else. So yeah, it's interesting to kind of see that. And I wanted to get your take also, JG, on Jordan Peterson, because he seems to be another kind of casualty of this. And I think that, in the larger picture of the cultural war that's going on between the right wing and the left wing, these are maybe small victories, and who knows what Peterson will do. But the fact that Jordan Peterson now kind of seems like a joke, and even his more ardent followers are they're either kind of done with him, or they're just becoming more hardcore, and more right wing than Peterson is. But what do you make of that?
Well, I thought it was interesting recently. Are you familiar with the economist Richard D. Wolff? He's sort of a democratic socialist type guy.
Yeah.
You familiar with him? Well, he actually challenged Peterson to a debate, along with people like Slavoj Žižek, who have also challenged Peterson, as well as Doug Lane from Zero Books, which, full disclosure, I work for Zero. A lot of left-wingers and progressive voices have challenged Peterson. And Peterson actually made reference to Richard Wolff's challenge recently in one of his lectures. And he said, well, I just don't see any point in debating one of these, postmodern neo-Marxists. And, I just thought to myself, this is the guy on Joe Rogan's show that said, well, they never want to debate me. They just don't want to debate me. No Marxist or leftist wants to debate me. He's just, to me, he's a cowardly liar. And, if I were to psychoanalyze him, I would say he's like this guy that, he talks about how he met his wife Tammy. And it's interesting because he chased her for 20 years. He sort of has that sad puppy syndrome. And I think he's always trying to prove that he's the alpha to her. That's what drives a lot of Peterson's rage, I think, at times. I'll probably get in trouble for saying that, but
well, no, I mean, I said this before, he's the incel that got out,
Right.
So, no, but totally. No, I think that's what I kind of find interesting about this, we're talking about the cultural war and stuff, is that a lot of these guys kind of burn out. And I think there's multiple reasons for that, but one of them, to go back to what you were saying, originally, the big news story being the constant stream of news and information and media. With these people Gavin McInnes, Jordan Peterson, even the Cernoviches.
Who's also tapped out. Lawrence Southern tapped out, isn't doing YouTube videos anymore.
Yes. What's the other, Laura Loomer, all of these dipshits, is that they do burn out kind of fast, faster than people like them used to. I mentioned before, I forgot that the Blaze existed, but Glenn Beck is kind of still around. And I think the only reason for that is because, Glenn Beck started, before the real kind of insane, 24-hour Twitter coverage of everything. But these newer personalities that are popping up, I mean, the environment is such that you just burn out, because I think that they can't control their own bullshit narratives for as long as they would like. And
I think there's a lot going on there. And I'm sorry for butting in, but I wanted to comment on this because, Gavin McInnes, I always found his interview with, he interviewed Richard Spencer on his show once, and it was very fascinating because they're laughing, making fun of feminists and stuff. And then it gets to a point where Richard Spencer says something along the lines of, civilization is the mist, and, the sort of ocean, the pond is, the lake. The lake was, I think, the word he used. The lake is race. Mm. And, McInnes just said, you don't really believe that. He was all, scared. And, the thing is, there is a real pipeline from the alt-right to the alt-right. And the alt-right has been increasingly marginalized since Charlottesville, which means they're getting more militant. They're starting to get into things like the militia movement stuff of the 90s. Ted Kaczynski is real popular amongst the alt-right now. There's a whole lone wolf terrorist group now called the Atomwaffen. Mm. And these are the things that are becoming popular on the alt-right. And it's interesting because I'm pretty involved with like the goth music scene, and there's always been sort of goth musicians that in the 90s sort of dabbled with sort of proto alt-right type stuff. And they've told me privately that they're looking at this new sort of far right, and they're just like, this is bad. I never expected this to happen. Even the old far right wingers are terrified of this sort of violent new breed that is coming out of the alt-right today. They're unhinged and willing to do whatever it takes to sort of get what they want. There's going to be I think a lot of like lone wolf terrorism that comes out of the far right, probably even more so than it was in the 90s. And I think that's the real concern when it comes to a lot of this right-wing stuff. And I think that's why people like McInnes and Lawrence Southern are actually backing off now.
You think they don't want to go there?
Well, I just think, I think these younger sort of millennial and Generation Z kids that are going through this pipeline from, libertarianism or the alt-right to the alt-right are, they're crazier than their predecessors. And, I think they will commit acts of violence. I mean, we've seen acts of violence committed already. I mean, in my hometown of Pittsburgh, we saw the synagogue shooting. Admittedly, that was by an older man, but, we're starting to see the rise of sort of this, right-wing violence. And the old guard of the far right, seems terrified of it themselves. They're like, oh, this may be too much even for them. They don't have the stomach for it. I think that's true with McInnes. I don't think he has the stomach for what he has helped create.
Well, because that's the thing, too, and he sort of he alludes to that when he was talking. I think on his podcast, he would always describe it as like the old crotchety guy who wants you to get off his lawn, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, that is who he really is. Would you refer to himself as like an Archie Bunker racist or something like that?
He's like an Archie Bunker, and then if you read his book, I forget what it's called, but it's like it's sort of like a Mr. Rogers type thing where he's like, I used to be a punk growing up, but then, I grew up and I had kids and made a family.
Right. Yeah, exactly. No, and I think you're right. Those people don't really have the stones for this. Mm-hmm. And then, there's also, there's just some of these people too that like a Laura Loomer, who will just use her religion, to deflect any and all criticism. But, she has to know on some level that, she's really kind of actually hated by most of the people in the true, alt-right, universe because she is Jewish. She's just a moron for kind of falling into that or believing that this is, gonna help or anything like that.
You saw that with Gavin McInnes when he did a video where he was showing his butthole on CRTV before he got fired. And, if you looked at the comments, people were saying this degenerate needs to be exterminated. The alt-right people were saying that. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, it's just a sad state of affairs that, a lot of the right is unprepared for the type of thing that they've, helped unleash. I'm not saying the alt-right is necessarily mainstream, but they're much more out in the open now than they would have been, 10 years ago.
Oh, I kind of think they're more mainstream than, like the true left wing is. Like those sort of things are just, it's like we can only now sort of begin to talk about, universal health care. But as you mentioned at the beginning, only if we, build the wall, keep out all those damn immigrants. Like that's the trade-off. Those sort of things are just sort of becoming socially acceptable to talk about in polite company. But, these alt-right, that's become so mainstream. Where again, you have, people like Sean Hannity and others, totally, not even dog whistling. Just being openly offensive and racist.
It's weird. It's weird because students I know that are in college, a lot of them don't even know who Acacia Cortez is, but they know who Ben Shapiro is.
Yeah,
which,
right?
So in a way, the right wing is more mainstream. They just have a monopoly on things. I can't watch a YouTube video without getting some ad for, Prager U or, some crappy show from CRTV or The Blaze or whatever it is now.
NRA TV.
Oh God.
Yeah. No, the Prager U is another, I do not understand. They've obviously, they understand, the internet algorithms, but yeah, it's the same thing. I get ads for that endlessly, and in what fucking world do you think I would ever sign up? And you pay money for that too. Why would you ever want to pay money? Because what Adam Carolla said it was a good idea? Again, like he's a fucking voice of reason for people. And I think that's also this, again, the mainstreaming of a lot of this, like, kind of like alt-light stuff. And I think that's another one of that'll be a legacy of 2018. Or one of the big stories coming out of, 2018 is how normalized it's become, based on people like Adam Carolla. We were sort of,
well, look at the Wall Street Journal. They're praising Bolsonaro and how he would be a great Republican president if you're in America. Bolsonaro is a person that has called for murdering left-wing activists in Brazil. This man is a monster. And I think he is going to go after leftists when the media attention is off of him. It's scary.
Oh, absolutely. This is a guy who posed and, smiled with a Adolf Hitler impersonator. He said he would kill his own son if he was gay, or beat the gay out of him. I think is how he put it.
My God.
No, he's a true psychopath. lunatic. No, I know exactly. Well, I was going to say exactly. You've got the Wall Street Journal praising Bolsonaro. Then you've got Adam Carolla, saying that you should sign up for Prager U. And then, even on the more sort of, silly side of it, you had brought this to my attention, PewDiePie, praising Gab, I guess? What is that story, just briefly?
He was, praising, this one YouTuber. Apparently, he gives shout-outs on his YouTube videos, but you have to pay for those shout-outs. So he doesn't research the people that he gives shout-outs to. So that's his plausible deniability. But, this person that he gave a shout-out to is, an open user of Gab who, has talked about red-pilling people on the Jewish question. And it's amazing. He got 1,500,000 subscribers. 15,000 subscribers. And 13-year-olds are very into this PewDiePie stuff. So, I don't understand it myself, but there are young teenagers that are watching this stuff. It's unfortunate. I'm not a fan of the whole, deplatforming thing. I think, in a lot of ways that could end badly for the left. But I also, don't really care about these Alex Jones types and Sargon of Akkad types and their so-called calls, for free speech. I think that's, really just cover for them in a lot of ways.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Especially the Sargon of Akkad and now you've got, Sam Harris, I think is, he took his name off YouTube or Patreon or something like that. I forget.
Oh, really?
Yes, I think so. I can't remember if he shut down his Patreon or he locked his YouTube account in, because, I guess, in solidarity with Sargon of Akkad. I don't even really know where to begin with any of that, but yeah,
it's fascinating. I always tell people with Sam Harris, Sam Harris can try to sleep at night with all his money, but at the end of the day, he knows that his degree that he got, it's pretty much an open secret within academia, that his degree is a vanity degree. he basically got in due to his mother being the inventor of the Golden Girls. I mean, he was born with a silver spoon, in every orifice of his body. So.
It's funny too, again, like Sam Harris is like, that's what passes for like a left winger now, again.
He calls for genocide of Islamic people.
Yeah, so that's like Bill Maher being a liberal. It's like just one of the most like openly racist, people towards Muslims and Arabs in general. Basically, any, the quote real bad Arab. Yeah, and he, Bill Maher is a fucking liberal, because he hates Trump or something like that.
Well, the concern I have, real quick, the concern I have that I sort of alluded to at the beginning is, Richard Spencer said a few months ago that the alt-right needs to sort of move left on economics. And we also see this with Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson is trying to make appeals to the left now and saying, oh, you need to go back to the way the left used to be with the labor movement that was protectionist and anti-war. And, it's getting very dangerous because they're trying to infiltrate sort of the DSA type momentum that the left has right now with people like Ocasio-Cortez and Bernie Sanders. And, there's a lot of people on the left that are falling for it. Like I said, there are people on the left that are willing to sell out these immigrants from Honduras who, we caused all the poverty and all the issues in Honduras when that coup happened in 2009, and we did nothing about it. So, if we're going to sell them out to get single-payer health care, I think it's nonsense, and I think people have to be on guard and make sure that we don't allow these Tucker Carlson types to, try to take away momentum from the left wing and the sort of momentum the DSA has created.
No, I agree with you too, and I think I've made my opinion on Ocasio-Cortez, before, and I don't think all that much of her. Although, she for the moment hasn't really backed down on most of what she was talking about or ran on, and I think it's sort of like whatever, like if that's the best we can do at the moment, like maybe we should just kind of take it, and not, or at least like don't let that become tainted, as you say, by people like Tucker Carlson.
Well, listen. I get why people think that this could all go badly with Ocasio-Cortez. We saw in the 1960s how Michael Harrington and sort of that original DSA got co-opted. But at the same time, there's not going to be some leftist revolution happening, especially in an age of nuclear weapons. And we need people like Ocasio-Cortez. She hasn't backed down. She hasn't turned into some Ted Kennedy progressive. She is pointing things out that is getting everyone in the media mad, from the Ben Shapiros to the liberal Democrats. And, if that's the best chance we got, I'll support the Green New Deal and everything she's pushing right now. I think it can work out in the long run.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think that, and I think that, we should maybe at least give her the benefit of the doubt. Although, I've kind of bitched about her before, and haven't put much stock in it. But yeah, I think, again though, it should show you something too, that, how afraid of her they are, that, and again, that the Tucker Carlsons of the world are trying to kind of, latch on to that. Should show you how afraid they are of the possibility of this movement, snowballing into something else.
Well, I understand too. People were upset when she eulogized John McCain on Twitter and all those things. I get it. But she unfortunately does have to play politics on some level. But a lot of the stuff she is calling for, like paying interns on Capitol Hill. She said it was a disgrace that they aren't paying the interns. I think she is pushing in directions that people like Nancy Pelosi, they're afraid of that. And she may be able to push them in a direction that is more leftward. And I think that's, if that's as good as we can get, I think it's a start.
Yeah, exactly. I think, or it's worth taking. Especially when you say, the like having to put, cause even if, she's only able to push, the Nancy Pelosi Democrats, back to where they were maybe 10 years ago, that's still kind of a win, seeing how far the Democrats have gone over to the right in order to, maintain their base. So,
it's like night and day. I mean, look, we went from the New Deal and the Great Society of LBJ to, the Clintonite neoliberal agenda that sort of mirrors the third way in Europe. I mean, it's atrocious. And we see growing wealth inequality. All these issues are coming together. That, for me, is the biggest story, actually, of 2018. Not just growing wealth inequality, but also the IPCC report, the International Panel on Climate Change. We're facing a real crisis with climate change. And we have, according to that report, 12 years to really get something done about it. So I think people have to keep their eyes on the ball and sort of figure out what to do and where we can put our energies as activists and citizens before it's too late.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think again, if there is a sort of a silver lining to the horrible 2018 year, I think that there is that kind of push that people are beginning to really kind of be energized. And, again, if it is, listen, like Bernie Sanders is never going to fucking be president. Okay. And his movement is dead or is as dead as it's going to be. So, moving past that and maybe looking to some of these younger people that, can actually kind of communicate ideas and can appeal to people, I think is good, ultimately. Mm-hmm. So we should kind of embrace that. I wanted to, quickly, JG, kind of sort of shift gears, but kind of, in the same realm of all this stuff, because the other day, I think for me, the other kind of big story 2018 sort of happened, towards the end of the year and has already kind of been forgotten, but is, the Jeffrey Epstein stuff. Mm-hmm. Finally kind of making, mainstream coverage and people sort of kind of waking up to it. And I think we're actually going to see that in 2019 is going to really become, hopefully, knock on wood, is going to be a larger story and it's going to have a little bit more momentum. But I don't know if you saw this, but because it just kind of sort of, ties all these things together. Have you ever heard of this guy, Jean-Francois Garipe?
Yeah, he's an utter piece of garbage. He's a abuser of women too. He abuses disabled women, actually.
Right. Yeah,
I'm familiar with him. He's writing a book on race realism now. All that garbage. Yeah.
Yes, and he started as I guess at Duke as a I don't know, like the neuroscience department, and he's written some book, about this, the revolutionary phenotype, which I think is just all about how great it is to be white and how white people are superior. Anyway, this has sort of just happened in I think the past couple of days, but he admitted on some other fucking, piece of shit right-wing podcast, that his, YouTube channel, NeuroTV, was funded by Jeffrey Epstein to the tune of $25,000 in 2014.
That's insane. I'm actually shocked by that, to some extent. I'm shocked, but I'm not,
Yeah. Now, he was like, oh, this is before, I guess, I became a white supremacist and whatnot. But who even cares? That doesn't even really, bother me. The fact is that 2014, this is well after the allegation, everybody knew what was going on with him. You did not have to look that hard to find, stories about Epstein. And he took $25,000. And it just kind of goes, I think it kind of just goes to show you these, all right-wing, white supremacists. They don't really give a shit about half of what they say. If this guy is willing to take $25,000,
is a sexual predator himself. He preys on autistic women. There's actual cases of that. Yeah, birds of a feather flock together.
No, I know, and it was just like when it kind of floored me. I was really like, wow, what the hell? And listen, that's the other thing too, is that there's more and more of these little tidbits coming out. Epstein just this year, in like October donated $10,000 to the DCCC. And they gave it back immediately, I guess, when they saw, the name on the check. But it's crazy that he's still doling out money. And for all of the, maybe the DCCC gives it back, but there are still organizations like Harvard that were taking his money as late as 2014, 2015. So, that's to me is kind of shocking. Again, and it really is just like money talks with all of this kind of stuff. And again, I don't think it really matters left, right, politics. I think this is just sort of like the world that we live in is sort of, fueled by this. But yeah, it's crazy to me that, and then, and again, this guy, Jean-Francois Garipe is still, he's still on all these big, black pilled, and he goes on Red Ice Radio and all that. And I mean, do they have no shame? I mean, you would think this would be like the nail in the coffin for him, given all the other controversy around him. But you're taking 20, and again, these are the people that are, they go on and on about, Soros, sex cults, and, all of this crazy stuff, Pizzagate and whatnot. And then there, you have them taking money from Jeffrey Epstein. I don't know. It's crazy to me. And I think that, again, it sort of encapsulates so much of the schizophrenic nature of 2018. JG, I'll throw it to you though for some final words. Anything you want to leave the listeners with. This was a little bit more, I think, depressing than I thought it was going to be, but it is a, end of the year special. And also, please tell the listeners where they can go to check out your podcast and any new shows you want to plug.
Well, the last thing I was going to say on all this Garepi stuff, one of the big stories of this year is the replication crisis in science becoming mainstream. They are unable to replicate studies, particularly from psychology and specifically evolutionary psychology, which is a real big thing for race realists. Those studies are becoming unreplicatable, and it's going from academia to mainstream news now in places like the New York Times. So these people, their whole ideology is not long for this world, even if it may come up in a different form in a few years or decades. As for my radio show, it's Parallax Views. That's parallaxviews.podbean.com.
Excellent. And you've been churning out episodes, and I have to finally, I hope over the winter break to be able to listen to all of them. But you did some really interesting shows, and just a really if people want sort of like a fun show where there's like a lot of information and also just a really interesting selection of guests. You've definitely inspired me in 2019 to kind of branch out a little bit more, get some more interesting guests, because you've had, who was the like dominatrix that you had on recently?
Ciara Lynch. She actually has a movie coming out soon. That's it's sort of like a pseudo documentary. She's interesting. She has her own podcast, Standard Deviation, and she was also a guest on Joe Rogan's show.
Yes.
So I'm starting to get the Rogan guests on.
Nice. Yeah, no, right, yeah, maybe, one day get Joe or go on Joe. Do you know, like, does he, like, fly you out there? Like, what's the deal with that?
I think that is the setup, actually. Yeah, I think that's what she told me, that she was flown out there to do the show.
Okay. Wow. That's the dream. Right?
It's funny, that episode that I did though, with her, it's gotten a lot of feedback. I guess it proves the old saying, sex sells.
Yeah, definitely. And, and then I guess she's sort of like a new kind of like, I don't know, type of she doesn't even call herself a dominatrix, right?
Yeah, she's like cyber dominatrix or financial dominatrix.
Yeah.
Guys pay her money just to make videos where she demeans them.
Right, yeah.
It's really dark stuff, folks, but.
It is, yeah. And I mean, I think that says a lot about, where we are as a society.
As a culture, yeah.
Yeah. Well, JG Michael, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you all for listening. I hope everyone has a safe and good holiday season. Like I said, I won't be here the next 2 Tuesdays, but if I can, I will, maybe I'll pre-record some shows, but if not, we'll throw in some fun, shows from the archive. Thank you all so much for listening, and I'll be talking to you very soon.
No rules. No rules. No taboo topics. No taboo topics. No fear of doom. No fear of doom. We are American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
Have you experienced the miracle of CBDs? They can help you reduce suffering, reduce stress, help you sleep better, modulate inflammation in the body, and is absolutely safe. Meta Hemp Solutions offers a radically innovative approach to CBDs for exceptional results. Stop suffering and reduce your stress now. Isn't it time for a good night's sleep? Stop worrying about tomorrow today. Lab tested for potency, purity, and is non-psychoactive. Free shipping to all 50 states. Try our product risk-free. Money-back guarantee. Use code AFR15 to get 15% off. That's Alpha Foxtrot Romeo 15 to get 15% off. Offer ends soon, so visit MetaHemp Solutions today at metahempsolutions.com or call 833-858-7500. Suffer no more. Get rid of the stress and sleep better. Get our product now at metahempsolutions.com. That's metahempsolutions.com.
We all know that they're not telling us the truth. So stand up for your rights, demand the real medicine, and your right to use it and grow it. This is Rick Sensen, and you're listening to American Freedom Radio.
Are the trials of modern-day living getting to you? Feeling tired all the time with no energy? Is proper nutrition a challenge? Having trouble sleeping? All of these evils, sleeplessness, tiredness, poor nutrition, and stress, wreak havoc on our bodies and minds. Enerfood, our incredible organic superfood, has been here to save your life day by day for over 14 years. With the densest nutrition on the planet, Enerfood is filled with 20 superfoods and super herbs designed to cure the evils of modern life. Enerfood will turn you into a superhero, and your family and friends will notice. Don't you want that get up and go feeling you need to seize the day? Why wait? Try it today and start feeling great again. Order now at www.enerfood.com and use the code TR15 for 15% off, or call 866-762-9238 to place your order by phone. Use code TR15 for 15% off Enerfood at www.enerfood.com.
News and information you can trust. This is American Freedom Radio. Freedom, American Freedom Radio. American Freedom Radio.
Tell the truth. Don't be bullshitting people. There's enough bullshit as it is. In fact, there's just enough. Did you know that? There's just enough bullshit to hold things together in this country. Bullshit is the glue that binds us as a nation. Where would we be without our safe, familiar American bullshit? Land of the free, home of the brave, the American dream. All men are equal, justice is blind, the press is free, your vote counts. Business is honest, the good guys win. The police are on your side. God is watching you. Your standard of living will never decline. And everything is going to be just fine. The official national bullshit story. I call it the American okey doke.
You're listening to AmericanFreedomRadio.com, the network who perseveres in delivering intelligent debate, constructive dialogue with true independence. The freedom to broadcast the truth is not free at all. So what is American Freedom Radio worth to you? The empowering information with fun, honest and pure integrity behind it provides an example to follow. Friendships to flourish with the moral altruism that pulls no punches. The hosts sacrifice and show remarkable discipline in their duty to deliver quality radio in service to the community with strength, wisdom and loyalty. The founders of AFR wish to thank you personally for sharing your views and insights to make the best radio and alternative media. Now it's time for you to give something back and play a vital role in the future of America. Be as generous with us as we've been with you. Click on the donate banner at AmericanFreedomRadio.com or volunteer by emailing AmericanFreedomRadio@ymail.com. Vaccine, psychotropic drugs and artillery batteries not included.
Launch sequence initiated.
We're now in the approach phase. Everything looking good. Lead control out. Grid control is good. 5, rocket copy. 4, 3, 2, 1. Engage.
to experience. American Freedom Radio.